Well, good afternoon. I'm back once again to answer any questions that you have and also to provide the analysis for the forecast for this upcoming weekend, as once again we have the potential for wintry mix and freezing rain, but right now the risk seems to be confined for places north of Macon. So let's go over the forecast with this look at the graphic of the weather impact alert, and I'm going to take this full screen just to show you. So we have that weather impact alert. It's for freezing rain and ice. Now, I've had a lot of questions in regards to people asking me, are we going to see any snow? No, we're not going to see any snow tomorrow. So the wintry precipitation that we're talking about is freezing rain and ice. Snow you can play with, you can take pictures of the snow. This is the type of stuff that really is a nuisance, and it's literally the worst type of wintry weather that we would see. So not really fun for this upcoming weekend. Any places that receive freezing rain and wintry mix, they could potentially see hazardous and slippery road conditions. And if the ice accumulations is just enough, could see some power outages. The higher the accumulation, the worst and the more long-standing the power outages would be. And our confidence is higher that it'll be for north central Georgia. And our confidence is also higher that the impacts will be higher the more north you live. So looking at the sky cam right now, this goes over all the 4 sky cameras all across our area. It's been a dreary day, and we had some scattered light showers throughout the afternoon, very similar to yesterday. Here's a look at the current conditions in Macon, 56 degrees. Winds are coming from the north at 5 miles per hour. So it's been relatively warm. We've seen 60s throughout our southern counties as well today. The headlines show a small rain chance today, but of course everyone is really paying attention towards what's going to happen tomorrow. Wintry mix possible and freezing rain tomorrow evening. Now we're honing in on the specific timing, and it looks like the beginning of the wintry precipitation will begin later tomorrow evening once temperatures go below freezing. So right around the late night hours or Sunday early morning. And then this would be mainly for our most northern counties. Here's a look at the radar. And it shows, let's wait to load it up. And it shows some rain, especially towards our east. So around Lawrence County, around the Dublin area, seeing some light showers that are getting into Johnson County. Same thing is true, a couple sprinkles in Washington County, Dodge County, and in Pulaski County. But if we extend the view, if we go more towards the west, we'll see a lot more activity, especially in the north and central Texas area. This is where the center of the low pressure system is currently located. And you can see a swath of freezing rain is currently expanding around the North Texas area near Lubbock and Abilene area. And we could also see steady to heavy rain south of Dallas. That's the low pressure system. And then just north of that, so towards the north, here's a graphic that shows the temperatures all across the country. You can see Arctic cold air. Kansas City currently having a temperature of 3 degrees, St. Louis 7 degrees, Wichita 9, a little bit more south than that, and Little Rock in the upper 30s, Oklahoma City mid-20s, and Dallas into the upper 40s. So what's happening throughout the weekend and what's going to cause this wintry mess, not only for us, but for the rest of the southeast, is that this low pressure system is eventually going to interact with the Arctic cold air. So it's going to bring in that moisture, and Arctic cold air is going to come together, and that's going to cause the wintry mix to begin, and we could have a situation all across the southeast. Temperatures right now locally are within the upper 50s, and we're seeing some lower 60s down towards the south. And here's a look at the humidity level. And this is what I'm talking about how that low pressure system is bringing in that moisture in from the south. And we could see some decent moisture. It says not bad, but for the month of January, where we typically experience some of the driest air out of the year, this is a lot of moisture, and that is being pulled in from the Gulf. And eventually that will interact with the Arctic cold air, and we could potentially see the start of the wintry mix once those two ingredients combine together. So here's a look at today. Once again, mostly cloudy, light scattered showers. let's get into the models. I know this is the thing that everyone wants to see. Now, this is the high resolution model. It doesn't show any clouds. And I want to also point out, this isn't the model that we typically show on our forecast. That will be the Future View graph model. But I'm a little biased towards this model because I think it's done a really good job in terms of predicting and forecasting winter weather specifically. So I'm going to show you this model first. And it shows, once again, some sprinkles possible later tonight. We get into tomorrow. Most of tomorrow is going to be a dry day, according to this model. Then, as I mentioned, once we get into the very late night hours tomorrow, and then potentially the early morning hours Sunday, that is when temperatures are going to be below freezing, and that's when we could potentially see the beginning of freezing rain, especially for our most northern counties. And this model has this coming down a little bit towards Jones County throughout much of the early morning. And then once we get into 10 o'clock, that's when we'll start to see that freezing rain and wintry precipitation start to head towards the north. And then you can see west of that precipitation, a line of rain and a couple of thunderstorms. Now that just goes to show how crazy this forecast is going to be, especially for Sunday afternoon. Now let me show you the graph model, because that model, the high resolution model, was out of range. It stopped once we got into the late morning. The graph model goes all the way until Sunday. This one shows clouds, shows a mostly cloudy night for us, and tomorrow will be dreary as well, but it also shows that tomorrow, the most of it's going to be a dry day. So we could see sprinkles start into the evening hours and some pockets of freezing rain for our most northeastern counties. I really don't buy this. I think the temperatures are going to be warmer than freezing at that point, so I don't think wintry precipitation could occur. But this is where I think I would put my stock into the arrival of wintry precipitation, especially for our northern counties. At 11 o'clock, you can see a swath of freezing rain that will last throughout much of Sunday morning. Now, the graph shows wintry weather for places as far south as Bleckley County. I also don't really buy this. I think this is the outlier in terms of comparing it to other models. This is the only model that shows the potential for the wintry precipitation reaching that far south. But we get into Sunday mid-morning, and that's when much of the freezing rain would end. And I just zoomed out there. So there's a look at Sunday 10 o'clock, looking at mainly dry weather. Then once we get into Sunday afternoon, so right around 2 o'clock, there's that line of rain and potential storms, what we call a squall line, coming in, and that could potentially give us widespread rain and maybe some thunderstorms throughout the afternoon. You can see that line progressively moving through our area 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock. By the evening, we should just mainly have light rain, and then everything should start to dissipate by the late night. Now, of course, Monday morning is going to be dry and will start to begin to clear up, but we still have that weather impact alert in place throughout Monday morning for the potential for anything that falls on Sunday and Saturday night to potentially refreeze once temperatures go below freezing. Now, I've been talking with Ben Jones a couple of minutes ago. We're talking about how this actually would be a short window of refreezing. Now, this potential for refreezing could only occur potentially after sunrise, where temperatures are at their lowest, and that's where we could potentially see below freezing temperatures. So hoping that we won't see much refreezing because of that. And talking about temperatures, let's take a look at the temperatures for this weekend. Tomorrow morning will be into the 40s. It's going to be a mild morning. Then we get into tomorrow afternoon, and you'll see temperatures are in the upper 30s, not necessarily close to below freezing, but right around midnight, that's where temperatures are going to be around freezing, and that's when models indicate the wintry weather to begin, especially for north central Georgia. Much of the morning around or below freezing. Then we'll get above freezing around the late morning when models indicate all that precipitation beginning to dissipate. And then you can see by the afternoon, places south of Macon receiving a huge warm up. And this is part of the reason why we're going to experience that line of showers and thunderstorms, is because of that stark difference in temperatures. Now, this is all due to the wedge. Now, for those of you who don't know the wedge, it is a stream of cold air that comes in from the north, and it gets trapped by the Georgia mountains. So this graphic explains it a little bit better. It's a high pressure system towards the northeast, and with the wind directions coming in from the north, it pushes all that cold air towards our area. Eventually, all that cooler air gets backed up against the mountains and generally our area, and then moisture drives that colder air more towards the north. So it's kind of like a battleground between cold and warm air, and that battleground typically occurs in our viewing area in central Georgia. So this is the reason why the future view temperatures are indicating a huge temperature difference. Could potentially see lower to mid 70s for our most southern counties and upper 40s towards the north. So this will be the main reason why, because of this temperature difference, that we will see that line of showers and storms move in throughout the afternoon. And because of that, the SPC has actually included the southern half of central Georgia within a level 1 out of 5 risk for severe weather. They actually expanded this risk. I did the stream around 2 o'clock, and it only had Chris County, Wilcox County, and Telfair County. Well, now the southern half of central Georgia is within that level 1 risk for severe weather. Now, once again, this is a low-end level 1, but a strong storm or two that has an extra oomph to it is possible. And the main thing that we'll be watching will be gusty winds. So very interesting day is upon us, especially for Sunday. It'll be crazy to see the potential for icing for north central Georgia throughout Sunday morning. Then 12 hours later, a strong storm, potentially a severe thunderstorm in the afternoon. I've never seen anything like this in my time here. This is a crazy, crazy forecast. Now, here's a colorful map, back to the ice. Here's a colorful map by the National Weather Service, and it shows the levels of the severity risks of impacts all across the Peach State. Now, we're looking at high potential for impacts for the northeastern part of Georgia. So the Georgia mountains are included within this, specifically all the way from Clayton to Athens. A little bit more south than that, that's a moderate risk for impacts, so including Madison, and also includes places farther towards the west, Atlanta, Rome, the northwestern corner of Georgia. And then more south than that, generally the majority of central Georgia, not central Georgia, the majority of north central Georgia, so the majority of areas north of Macon within the viewing area is within a low severity of impacts. But if you notice, no place south of Macon is within this graphic. So this goes to show the increasing certainty that this event is mainly going to be for north central Georgia, especially within our viewing area. So looking at the different models in terms of ice accumulations, this is the GFS model, only shows potential ice for Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. This is the Euro model, a little bit more north than that, only the northern tip of Putnam, Hancock, and Jasper County. This is the graph, and it shows, once again, only the northern half of our area receiving ice. This shows a tenth of an inch to potentially a quarter of an inch for north central Georgia. And then we have the NAM model, and this has only parts of Hancock and Putnam County. So with that being said, earlier today, Ansley Parker and I, we went over the models, and we made a map here. Once again, this is up for change, but this is, as of right now, the forecasted ice accumulations. And it goes to show areas south of Macon could receive just rain. It looks like it will be mainly rain throughout the weekend. Some isolated pockets of freezing rain is possible, but it won't be enough to really be impactful throughout the weekend. Now, areas north of Macon could see potentially a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch, with higher accumulations farther north you live. And then for the northern tips of Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County, there's increased likelihood that they could see very impactful ice accumulations, the ones that could potentially lead to widespread power outages. But once again, that's only for the northern tips of our viewing area, so Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. So you may, so you probably saw the different ranges, and you're probably asking, well, what does that mean? So a tenth of an inch of ice would mean a light glaze. So some ice on the trees and power lines, slick spots on the sidewalks and some of the roads. Travel won't be impossible, but you would just have to be extra cautious. But this is where things get problematic. A quarter of an inch is when driving gets really hard, especially harder to use your brakes, tough to stop on the roads. Bridges start to ice. We'll have coating on the windshields and the cars. And this is where trees and power lines will begin to fail. This is where we could see some outages at this point. And once we get to half an inch of ice, that's where it gets catastrophic and very significant. Travel is impossible, would have widespread tree and power line damages that could, and the power outages could last for days or even weeks. And unfortunately, we are expecting this for North Georgia. The area originally shaded in red in that past graphic that showed the risk of severity. Well, we're forecasting over half an inch of ice for places such as Athens, Clayton, and Gainesville. So definitely a real situation up towards northeast Georgia, where they should definitely start preparing, or if not, they should have already had their plan in place for this weekend. But once again, for us, it looks like most of north central Georgia would range from a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of ice. So here are the current watches and warnings. And this was issued by the National Weather Service. So the watches were issued yesterday, and this only includes 6 counties in central Georgia: Jones, Baldwin, Washington, Hancock, Putnam, and Jasper County. And then earlier today, most of North Georgia were included in an ice storm warning, as certainty is higher that they will see at least over a quarter of an inch of ice. So here are the headlines, basically a recap of the forecast. We could potentially see ice accumulations between a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch for areas north of I-16. A line of rain and thunderstorms are going to be possible on Sunday afternoon, and some of them could go strong. So we have that level 1 for the southern half of central Georgia. I know, it sounds crazy. I'm still trying to digest this. And then once we get into Monday morning, we will have that potential for refreezing for anything that falls the day before, and even for anything that fell Saturday night. However, it looks like the window in which things could refreeze is going to be extremely small for Monday morning. So here's that recap of the weather impact alert. This will be for Saturday evening all the way through Sunday and ending Monday morning. Once again, this would be for the potential for refreezing. I'm talking specifically about Monday morning. It would be for the potential for refreezing. But of course, Saturday and Sunday would be for potential wintry mix and ice accumulations. So the need, avoid the roads, especially if you live farther north in our viewing area. If you live in Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, Jones, Baldwin County, definitely avoid the roads. In general, just if you're in north central Georgia, it might be best to have a plan to stay in your house, postpone any outdoor plans for the weekend. So that is the analysis of the forecast. I'm going to answer questions now. If we get any measurable snow, it'll be in February. Well, definitely won't. It doesn't look like it'll be in January. I think, of course, for this weekend, the chances of snow are almost zero. We're definitely honed into the fact that we're going to be within the area of that low pressure system that would be just mainly ice. Johnson County will only get rain. There's definitely a chance of freezing rain for Johnson County. Let's look at this model right here just to show you. So this model does not show anything for Johnson County, but the graph model, it does. So right around the early morning, it shows freezing rain for Johnson County. However, I don't think the ice accumulations are going to be that high in Johnson County. Valdosta, yeah, you'll be fine. Valdosta, yeah. You are way too far south in Georgia to experience the impacts. So you're definitely good in Valdosta. What lowers Hancock, lower Hancock, upper Milledgeville expecting? So unfortunately, that area is expecting the higher potential of ice accumulations that would be impactful. So y'all are within the winter storm watch, and y'all will also have the potential for higher ice accumulations, could potentially get to 1/4 of an inch. Warner Robins have icy roads tomorrow around 1 to 3. No, impossible. Nothing will fall at all throughout tomorrow afternoon. If anything falls for Warner Robins, it would be for later Saturday night, and much of it will fall Sunday morning. But no, we're not expecting anything to fall in the afternoon tomorrow. Sandersville, Georgia, getting any ice? It's possible. Y'all are within the winter storm watch. So the specific range in which you could receive ice would be 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. What about Crawford County? The chances are lower that you'd have any impacts or any significant ice accumulations in Crawford County. Looks like it would look like it'll be mainly a rain event if this forecast stands. So Sunday into Monday, are you talking about Sunday night into Monday? Because Sunday night into Monday is going to be dry, and you'll be clear throughout Monday morning, but we're talking about the potential for refreezing into Monday morning. So what time will Sandersville get ice? If you receive ice, it would be, most of it would be Sunday morning before 10 o'clock. All right, so that will be the end of the stream, but we'll be back in the next hour for our 13WZ show at 5 and 6. And then Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones, he will be live on the stream at 9 o'clock answering more of your questions as well. So thank you very much and have a safe weekend.